Welcome into HogvilleNET YouTube Live, everyone. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. It is a Tuesday. Tuesday. We're still early week. But you know what? It's football week, right? The football Hogs teeing it up, kicking off Saturday home opener, Alabama A&M. That's a dub. How good does Arkansas look in all three phases? That's something else. We'll have a pregame that we're going to do planned for Thursday for the football Hogs. Obviously, we're here to talk basketball here today. We do that every day. There's always something relevant. There's always something important. Yesterday we had to come back on. We had some breaking news elements with Caleb Holt, class of 2026. I've got him ranked the second best player in the country. Obviously, a 5-star, 6'5" guard. We talked about that. We're going to get into some other stuff today. Just a reminder about Holt. That visit is this weekend, so you'll get to see that fan experience in Fayetteville. The only thing I'll do a little cleanup here before we get into the rest of the show. I've been referring to him as an Atlanta area guy, which is partly true. Last year he was at Grayson High School, which is in the Atlanta area footprint in the metropolitan area, about 40 miles technically outside of Atlanta proper. But he's originally from Huntsville, Alabama. I also thought in the other direction that was also in the footprint. So I thought he was even in Alabama still an Atlanta area guy. I went and double checked that yesterday when someone called me out about it. And I looked it up, and Huntsville, Alabama is actually 3 hours away from Atlanta. So, even though that's a big area, the Atlanta greater metro area, that's still outside of that. So he's not an Atlanta area guy. He is an Alabama native. That's true. Just a little cleanup there. Today we're going to do a scale of 1 to 10 update. I do these on my confidence in Calipari, kind of a confidence check on where Calipari is with the players that he's pursuing. Hot pursuit, priority recruits. The scale is not about does Arkansas lead or not lead. It's about how have you progressed in terms of lining up visits. How did you prioritize them? What we know, showing up courtside. Then you had guys that were brought in that were given offers or Arkansas got in late on. They're on the list as well. So it runs the gamut, but we're going to update that. I updated my article over on HogvilleNET. It's also on KNWA Pig Trail Nation's website just a few days ago, where I upgraded some, dropped some ratings for others in this scale of 1 to 10. It's more about confidence level with Calipari with each individual player that Arkansas that we know has been pursuing. So I'm going to run back through that and go through those updates that I published again in my written content online just a couple of days ago. And then what I had for Caleb Holt, because we just learned about the upcoming official visit yesterday, I'll actually upgrade that in the show today from where I had it a couple of days ago. That'll be the one change over the rest. So we're going to get to that next. We're first going to hit with some intel. This is not wide sweeping, breaking, anything major. We didn't put it out that way, but it is some new little, I'll refer to them more as little intel updates. Just circling back on some things that we've already talked about. Some of it's static in terms of the overall status, but in recruiting, because things change daily and what you thought was true yesterday changes, it's always good to go back to the sources as much as you can, especially this time of year when the visits are being scheduled, then they get canceled or then they get postponed. Everything's constantly changing, including people's perceptions about where you are in a pecking order for a player. So you're constantly going back through that. So the last time we talk about a player 2-3 days ago and say, hey, this is where it stands now, we come back with more information a few days later. It may not have shifted a whole lot, but that's very telling sometimes. It means that even status quo, you're on a path where you thought you were. Then if it's something vastly different, that's more of the, hold on to your seat. This has either gotten better or gotten worse. So we do have some updates and a little bit of intel I'll provide you as we move through this. Obviously, going back to the Caleb Holt visit that's upcoming, he became the first of 5 publicly known visits now that are the schedule, the dates are publicly known. Another one of Torre, who I'm going into right now. He's one that I've confirmed that his dates are finalized for the Arkansas visit. He hasn't just released them. So when we came on yesterday to talk Caleb Holt, it was earlier in the day. It was just after noon. And so later in the day, Joe Tipton put out, I believe it was Tipton, put out that Torrey would take a weekend visit this coming weekend when Arkansas is hosting Caleb Holt, that Torrey's going to visit Providence. Well, we mentioned Providence when we went through the list of the final seven or top seven that Tori put out just a few days ago. And we mentioned Providence outside of Arkansas and UConn as being that team that's climbed the ladder up, perceived to be up toward the top of his wish list in terms of who's really the top players here. A lot of times these lengthy lists, whether it's 7, 8, 10, 12, there's some fluff in there. And there you may take visits to all of them, but there's really, usually this time of year, there's usually 2 or 3, maybe fewer than that are really in it. and Providence is one of those. So we mentioned that the other day. Let's go back through the 7 schools again: Arkansas, UConn, Providence. Then you've got Oregon, Louisville, Maryland, and Florida State. So those made his top 7. Again, I know the dates for his Arkansas visit. I've got to wait till he releases it. I think I was hoping that he would release all of his visits. One of the things yesterday, I was hoping when I saw that, I realized, well, maybe he's just going to piecemeal them out each week as he's getting ready to visit, or whenever that week is for a visit. That's when we'll find out. And it'll be like that. Sometimes it's done that way. You see some players just put out a bigger list and a more wholesome list, and you see that. Cole Clower is an example. We're going to talk about Cole here in this update. So several things here with Torrey. Providence is one to keep an eye on. I still think, and based on the sources I revisited that it's still Arkansas and UConn. There are others out there saying UConn's backed off. Dan Hurley moves in mysterious ways, and part of this is why you want a 360-degree look at these things. Hopefully you have sources that aren't just other folks in the media. A lot of those are valuable, really good. I rely on some of that. But also people in the trenches, folks connected to the camp, or people talking to the folks in the camp, and those kind of things. And so working through this, and I can assure you, Arkansas's coaching staff doesn't believe for a second that UConn and Dan Hurley are out of the mix and not really in it for Torrey at this point. They consider that the top contender. All right. And there's other sources I have that I revisited. We've said this before, but just going back to them, hey, what you gave me a few days ago, was that real time? Was that old information? Can we look at that again? We're back to the same thing. You have some that think that Hurley is prioritizing other players at the same position. Cole Clower, for example, we've talked about that. Then you have others that say, no, look, it may be a situation where Calipari wins in the end. And beats Hurley here, but they think UConn is still in it. So the intel update here is that just kind of status quo in terms of, from my sources, it's still, I didn't see a shift that UConn's out, and I didn't see a shift from the folks that think that UConn's out. Everybody's kind of holding their ground firmly in terms of who gets back with me on where things stand in this particular case with the Dutour. Just a reminder, the 6'5", maybe pushing 6'6", athletic, explosive wing, Notre Dame High School in West Haven, Connecticut. And so the visit to Providence, you keep an eye on that. You late today. I mean, I'm all over the map. I came in, I did 2 yesterday, an early one and then one later in the day. I sometimes do them in the afternoon. I sometimes do them in the morning. A lot of that's predicated on my schedule. I have to go out of town a couple of days a week, and now I'm shifting things around. So when you see those really early ones, typically it's because I've got a long day and I'm going to be away from the casa. By the way, I don't know why I didn't lead with this. This is bad on me. I got to do this. I've got to do this. Happy birthday to my youngest of 3, sweet 16 today. Happy birthday, Lexi. I hope your day is going great. It's a school day, but happy birthday to you. It's the sweet 16. I know there's a lot of good stuff in your day. That I'm sure about, but I wanted to say it here. Normally, playing with you. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, I'm not consistent with it. When I come on here, and then I just kind of put out a tweet that I'm coming on, and sometimes it's last minute because I figured out where in my day I can squeeze it in. So it's not real consistent. I'm all over the map with when I come on. But I'll make no apologies for that, because a lot of it, sometimes I'm waiting on just a little more information, and I don't want to just open up a can of fluff for you, and then come in here like human AI and just regurgitate what other people who are in the trenches doing the work are actually digging up and talking about. And then I come on and kind of blend in like, yeah, I got this. We don't do that. So sometimes that means we move we're kind of moving around the dial on when we're able to jump in here. All right. So happy birthday to my youngest. Now I've got 30, 27, and 16. That's That's the age of the kiddos. They're always kids to me. They're my babies. Is how I look at it. You know, I never look. I mean, the adults are adults. I don't treat them like babies, but you know how that is when you're a parent. For those of you that aren't, you'll probably find out someday. You feel like that about them forever. Hello, Mr. McPherson. Well, hello. How are you? All right, so let's move in. Let's keep going with Abdou Toure. Again, he's got a visit finalized to Arkansas. Some of these other schools, we don't know yet. What I don't know is, does he have a visit planned for all 7 schools on his finals list or top list? That I'm not sure about. Providence, but whatever the number is, I hope that, again, we'll see it sooner rather than later. But I think now, just repeating what we said, maybe that drips and drops as he goes. And it happens like that with some. But I still have a confidence level. When we get in the confidence level, it hasn't changed. This visit to Providence coming out yesterday hasn't changed from where I had it a few days ago. Once I knew knew what those dates were to come back to Arkansas. Remember, he took the unofficial visit October of last year. So there's that. All right, let's move on. Baba Aladdin. We have reported on here intel before that he is working to finalize a visit date, not Arkansas, trying to get him to visit, not one of those, well, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but we're efforting it. No, they're working to finalize the dates. That's been the intel for a while. We've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, I think. All right. Last night, someone reached out to me very late, getting back to me about Toure, and they just shared with me some news on Baba Aladdin, the 6'10", maybe pushing 6'11", versatile, stretch 4 kind of guy. Maybe an Evan Mobley projection later. He's got to get stronger and better defensively. Out of Maryland, Silver Springs, Maryland. And so we've been talking about for a while, but one of my sources last night, getting back with me on Toure, said, hey, I'm hearing that he's going to take, that Aladdin's going to take a visit to Virginia Tech in early September. I didn't get dates, just early September. Well, I mean, here we are, the first visit weekend. If you want to look at a weekend since the dead period ended, and when the football season week 1, where schools are trying to maximize that, bring players in for those game day weekends. Some do, some don't. Arkansas uses a lot that don't have home games, but Aladdin, we know Arkansas's got Caleb Holt coming in, but Arkansas does have an open weekend the first weekend of September. The next 4 visit dates start mid-September and run through early October that are known publicly. They're still efforting and finalizing visit dates with others. That's what we're talking about today. So if you thought Arkansas might try to use that weekend for players that aren't already scheduled, and Aladdin's one we know they're finalizing. Now we know Virginia Tech, because today Deshaun London with 247 Sports formally put the date out for this visit to Virginia Tech. He announced it as September 6th. So that is the first weekend. So when my source said early September, that's the only thing I can think of if it's going to be a weekend visit. And it got my wheels to turning. So the intel there is not just the visit, because that came out today. A lot of you've already seen that. The intel is the same source talked about 2 other things. He goes, well, there is a Maryland visit already on the books. I believe that one's projected his in-state, home state school the following weekend when Arkansas will be hosting Air Fandiane. Aladdin visiting Maryland Terrapins that weekend, which I guess would be September 13th would be that weekend, fall into that weekend. But he also mentioned, so he reminded me of that. And then he said he's heard that a visit to Gonzaga, and we've talked about talking about visiting Gonzaga, but a visit to Gonzaga, he mentioned that. But he said that the Arkansas visit, he heard that the date on that was maybe set. Now remember, Arkansas. My intel is that they're working on finalizing it. This source is saying he thinks it's maybe already set. So that's not a big difference. He didn't give me the dates. He somehow knew that Virginia Tech was coming up this weekend. So I don't know if he's talking to someone, and if he's talked to Aladdin, he wouldn't tell me that. Or someone in his camp. He just said directly with someone in his camp. He just said that keep an eye on the Arkansas date, potentially now has been firmed up. Well, we knew when Toure's was finalized. Again, we have to sit on those dates. I know those. I don't know Aladdin, and I don't know for sure that it's finalized, but I have one source now that thinks it is. So this is not a huge shift in the talking point, other than maybe we find out pretty soon that something's set there. And again, I can I'll try to circle back to get a second confirmation on that, where I can come on here and say with certainty it's been finalized. Now we just wait for it to be announced. So, and remember, the Virginia Tech announcement comes out today in terms of the specific date, and that's not week of visit. So maybe we'll get some of his. We got the Maryland one, which is mid-September. It's almost a month ahead. So maybe we'll get some of his sooner rather than later. Kansas extended an offer to Arkansas target Cole Clower, who we've talked a lot about, national top 25, 5-star, or I think technically he's a 4-star right now, but I think if he stays in the top 25 and he ends up around there in the composite at some point, that'll translate to a 5-star recruit, 6'7" out of the state of North Carolina. We know what his 7 visits that are lined up. And Arkansas is one of those, October 3rd to the 5th. And he's got most of his visits, several of them before, several after. So Arkansas is kind of in the middle there. And, the talking points about who leads there, some people think UConn and Dan Hurley lead there, and that's why they think, similar position-wise, not the similar player to Abdou Toure. They think that's why maybe Toure's on the outside looking in with Dan Hurley. Also, North Carolina State's mentioned a lot, being an in-state kid. But I'll say this about Clower and this Kansas offer coming, again yesterday. Remember, he had a group of 8 teams that were kind of his finalists. And Arkansas, that came out, and then Arkansas and Kentucky both offered him at the end of Nike Peach Jam. Well, pretty soon after that, he announces 7 places he's going to visit, and Arkansas and Kentucky emerge, and some of the teams that were on that top 8 list or final 8 list were no longer on there. So it's not that he can't later maybe schedule visits with some of those teams, but he kind of put all of his out in the cluster, and there's not a lot of talk of he's looking to add more, but you never know, because he shifted gears once he got those Arkansas and Kentucky offers. Who's to say that Kansas, now making an offer, didn't do that with the expectation that they're going to get a visit? So keep an eye on that. Cole Clower gets this Kansas offer. It very well could be that Bill Self thinks he has something in the works to get him on campus for a visit. And then you wonder, is Clower adding an 8th team to his scheduled visits, or is he going to bump somebody? Is somebody, is there something already developing where somebody's out or something's changed there? You just never know, but keep an eye on that. So no intel really with Clower. The Alla Dotton thing, I know I muddied that a little bit because it was, the source information was kind of multi-pronged. It's nothing major there other than, in addition to Toure, you want to get to a point where you've confirmed that that's finalized, whether they put it out on their own timeline or not, because Arkansas has more opportunities beyond all those dates they've got set up in September and then Clower in early October. You're going to host more games if you want to do it that way and bring them in for a football game in October. The weekend Clower comes in, it's a bye week. So you're trying to think then what's next, because we've talked a lot about it. Arkansas really hasn't scheduled official visitors in the pending class, the most important class coming up to the next early signing period, in addition to other visitors. It's always been one-offs with maybe some unofficial visitors coming in. So where can you stack the next guys that you're working on? The next bit of intel, and this is just more status quo, I've asked again, and Arkansas is still working on finalizing a visit date for late offer Chase Foster, the 6'8" forward out of Baltimore. Played on the Nike EYBL circuit CP3. Arkansas got on him late and gave him a late offer just a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've talked about all of this, that offer would be tied to a visit. Sure enough, I think, got intel a week or so ago and came on here and said, yeah, for sure, they're now trying to finalize, not get him to, not talk him into visiting, but the parties are working on getting those dates finalized. And I circled back on that, and that's still where they're at. They're working on getting that finalized. So any of this stuff hopefully comes out sometime this week. We may have to wait on it, but we'll certainly circle back and talk about a lot of it. All right, nearly 20 minutes in. Thank you for joining me on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. We're going to now get into the scale of 1 to 10 confidence levels. These were my updates, again, published at HogvilleNET, KNWA, Pictorial Nation, on those websites just a few days ago. JJ Andrews, committed to Arkansas, remains a 9-point infinity 9 after the decimal out of 10. Nothing absolute until he signs. That'll be early November signing period before he can do that. but it's almost a given, right? It's basically a given. He's still at the leader. We moved Abdu Torre up to an 8.5. I think he was in the sixes, 6.5. I moved him up to an 8.5. I keep saying that I think Arkansas, if it's not the leader, it's right there with UConn. Let's see where Hurley settles on this in terms of his full effort on this. But Arkansas is right there, and we know now that he's got a visit scheduled. Let's just see what those dates are. So those two are well ahead of everybody else right now. Jordan Smith Jr. again coming in September 19th to the 21st. That weekend, I've got him still as a 6.5. It's a pretty good confidence level for Calipari. Remember, this scale is all about his ability to finish as the winner and land a pledge for Arkansas. It's not about who leads or doesn't lead right now. For Jordan Smith Jr., you keep hearing it, Duke, probably more sources I have that think Duke's in the lead there. Then Georgetown in order, and I have one, I've mentioned this multiple times, that thinks Arkansas is, but you're getting them on campus. You're getting him in. There's plenty of folks out there that think it's down to Duke and Arkansas with Duke in the lead. At the end of the day, 6.5 is pretty strong for Calipari. I think the sales pitch, we keep talking about this, that he can help him transition to lead guard for the NBA, be a point, and not just a combo /2, which is kind of how he's viewed right now at this level. That's part of the sales pitch, along with just the great track record of developing guys, getting them preferred draft spots, getting them developing to the point where they flourish when they get to the NBA. And the track record speaks for itself. And then you get the face-to-face on your campus, all the bells and whistles, and you get to sit down with the family and the player and go through all that. And the team, the folks that are in for the visit, who are they looking back at hearing this from? It's John Calipari. So a lot of gravitas there. It's why it's a 6.5. I've got the same for Tay Kenny, who the staff's been on for a long time. Yes, Louisville's the perceived leader there. Maybe that's true, but you've had a long-standing relationship with the player, his family, back when you were at Kentucky. He took an unofficial visit while Cal was there as the coach. Everything else we've talked about: 5-star guard, 6'2", out of Kentucky native, playing an overtime elite. We know Cal's track record of pursuing and landing overtime elite guys. All of it feels wheelhouse for Calipari. I don't care who the perceived leader is. I'm a 6.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Again, 5 being the midway, kind of could go either way. I have a higher confidence level than just middling for Calipari with this player. I've got Arafat Yanni holding at 6. At one point had him at 6.5. I brought it back down to 6. But again, Houston, the perceived leader there. He's the official visit date, September 12th to the 14th. Mika Murnin, I actually elevated that one. I know Arkansas's coaching staff is going out there, expected to send Chin Coleman out to Euro Cup, I guess any day now. I mean, it starts late August. We're late August. I don't know if it's the 28th or 29th, but it goes through to almost mid-September. Arkansas expected to send over associate head coach Chin Coleman. But in addition to that, just how impressed he was with his visit almost a year ago in late September. The other things that I've heard, 6, bumping him up to a 6. At one point, I think I had him at a 5, or I don't think I had him much higher than that. I certainly hadn't have him as high as a 6 for Calipari and where that stands. So it's better than it has been. Cole Clower, because that visit scheduled and announced, we broke that a few weeks ago. I've bumped him up beyond the midpoint to a 5.5. And the only reason I'm not a little more bullish with Calipari getting him in the room is only because Arkansas got in really late, and they've already got J.J. Andrews, and they're close on Abdu Torre. And how many wings in the room? I think 2, but 3 seems like a stretch to me. I guess depending upon how things go, you could reprioritize, and Clower could be higher up on your board. I just don't know about that right now. At the end of the day, if I felt like that was happening, and I had source information saying, look, Arkansas's in the top 2 or 3 here, if I knew that, I'd have that number higher. But right now, 5.5 is still above the midpoint line, mainly because you're getting him on campus, and that date's known, and it's not just they're finalizing. No, it's out there. Now, we know, disclaimer for all of it, dates change. Sometimes they get canceled. Sometimes things completely go in a direction that where you thought it was heading, it changes on a dime. That's why we come in and do the updates. Baba Aladat, we just talked about 5.5. I don't know a date on that one, but Calipari put so much focus on him for the longest, even when he was class of 2027. And we told you some intel we got was Calipari's known for a while, I mean, months before it went public, that this was likely to happen. It's one of his wheelhouse things, are players that reclass pursuing that. And so he's been recruiting him with that in mind. And so I think about that, and I think about the idea that Arkansas is in those finalizing of visit dates, those visit date stages. Obviously, things can change in recruiting, but 5.5, so better than the midpoint there. Chase Foster, again, Arkansas is working to finalize with him, a late guy. Not sure what the pecking order is for him for Arkansas just yet. They've prioritized him to the point where they're finalizing a visit, 5.5. So I'm there with that. Brandon McCoy, I'm still at a 4. I could get to the. You think Arkansas is involved there? I think unless we hear something with, it's been real quiet on his front. Duke, West Coast schools, you hear a lot. Arkansas, Calipari prioritized him courtside for everything he did in July because he didn't play in the spring. And so he's a 5-star. I mean, 6'5" guard. St. John Bosco, where they get loaded up with 5-star dudes out there. McCoy, I'm a 4 right now because I need to hear more about, other than Arkansas's working on, which we reported a few episodes ago, working on, still pursuing him as a priority and working on getting him a visit. I'm not told yet that they're finalizing a visit. I don't have it framed that way. But the other thing is the September 3rd date that we talked about yesterday morning when I was on early, coming up, that's the open recruiting period. Right now, you're in a quiet period. Players can come onto your campus, coaches can't go out. September 3rd, the floodgates open. And I'm keeping an eye on Calipari going left coast, getting out to St. John Bosco. If he's in that building and we still haven't heard yet what Brandon McCoy plans to do by then in terms of visits and where Arkansas fits in, if we're still in puzzlement over that, we're keeping our eyes on Calipari and that coaching staff. Do they make a beeline out there early at some point once September 3rd hits? And then we'll know that McCoy, and we'll probably up the ante on this confidence level. Right now, it's just been too quiet. Based on the reporting, I'm going to get on Caleb Stokes, and that, I said it's on life support with Arkansas. We'll see if that can change. It sounds like with the NIL numbers being thrown around, that's not very likely. So I've got that at a 1.5. I've dropped it. I think I had it at a 4.5 just because he expressed interest back in May to visit Arkansas. But lately, on what's come in, I've got it all the way down to a 1.5. That's about as life support as you can get when you're talking a confidence level in John Calipari's recruiting. We'll see if something shifts that. And finally, as we try to get out of here pretty quickly, I'm jumping Caleb Holt up. If I didn't say it already, I'm saying it now. I had him at a 4 as well, knowing that Arkansas was finalizing that visit date. I knew my next update, I would be ready to jump that. But now that I've heard the date, and we know that that's gone public, I've gone from a 4 to a 5.5. I think there's a lot of ground to be made up with Alabama. Most folks think it's Alabama and Auburn. With Kentucky's got a visit scheduled. We've talked about that. Kansas trying to get in the mix. Louisville. Those are 2 Adidas schools. He's one of the prime Adidas, the best player on the Adidas circuit. MVP, as we mentioned, of the Adidas Euro Camp. MVP, the 17U Game Elites run to the winning the Adidas Championship a week before Peach Jam. So he's a guy that I think at 5.5, that says a lot about Calipari and confidence level in him, because there's a lot of ground to be made up. It's not that Calipari's not been prioritizing him. He has. We've reported all along, going back to May of last year, seeing Calipari watch him compete in the first live eval session a year prior to this past spring and summer season, and going out to Grayson High School last year multiple times to see him, making sure that a staff member's at every one of his spring and summer games in this last set. All of that. And then the player telling me when I interviewed him, I retweeted this with Holt, I want to visit Arkansas. I'm waiting on Calipari to ramp it back up. So I'm not sure, with all the time he's put into it, regardless of how quiet it's been in terms of the national perspective, I'm not sure how good this could end up being for Arkansas just yet. But we're about to find out, I guess. Maybe we'll learn something pretty soon. That's the goal. But the visit's this weekend, so keep your eyes on that. The visits are already started. Arafan Diane, again, after skip a weekend. Apparently, at least as it is now, you get Irfan Diane in September 12th through 14th. Again, Jordan Smith Jr. September 19th to the 21st. Ted Kinney September 26th to the 28th. Cole Clore October 3rd to the 5th. And we've gone through some of these other guys again that they're either finalizing or working on getting these visit dates set up. One last thing before I get out of here. I did go over 30 minutes. I didn't make it under. I never do what I think I'm going to do. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my own head here. I'm pulling rank. I'm going to check myself. I'm going to upper management here, and I'm going to, for a day, at least for now. And he listens to the show, so I know he's probably laughing about this. But Eric Patrick Musselman, EPM, I always refer to him that way now. I've explained why it's a playful thing. I didn't revoke his Razorback card or anything like that. It's not done out of anger or hate or meanness. But today, we're going back to Muss because it showed up. It popped into my DM box. I don't know when it was. Was it yesterday? Maybe yesterday. But Pro Hog, the school's first one and done under Muss's watch, Moses Moody, arguably the greatest freshman season ever. It comes down to him and Scotty Thurman. The guy was all everything. He was the best player on the first of back-to-back Elite Eight teams, the first of 3 consecutive Sweet 16 teams under Muss's second season. How crazy is that? It was just year 2 after the COVID year and things that, and so the season was affected by COVID because you played fewer games, but that team started, poorly in SEC play. We know how that goes after going unbeaten against a watered-down non-conference schedule, all home games, right? COVID. And then they went nuts, won like 12 straight games. It helped. I think that tied a school record when you looked at playing that winning streak coming all against SEC opponents. I believe that's correct. But Moses Moody was out at USC. I think he was at practice, and they took a photo op with Muss. So it was Mo and Muss. You can't say Mo and EPM. I can't do that. I had to go over my own head and we're doing a furlough today. We're going back to Muss today. Mo and Muss, the Mo and Muss pick. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on my Twitter page, my X account. I think that was yesterday. I'm pretty sure it was. But I think it's always great when players can reunite, with their coaches. Muss does a great job of going to as many events as he can, whether it's Las Vegas Summer League, whatever it is. We know John Calipari's done that for years, continues to do it. That's the Arkansas coach now. That's the head hog now. He's the best to ever do a lot of things and, shattered a lot of glass ceilings in terms of what was thought to be okay or not okay. He rewrote some of that. But you always like seeing head coaches support their players, and Muss has always done that. And he loves those photo ops. He loves them. Big smiles. And Moses Moody, again, was one of the guys that helped launch, maybe the most important player that helped launch his success at Arkansas. Case could be made there on many levels, recruiting, on the court results, all of that. And ended up being a lottery pick. So, all of those are feathers, not just for the player, but for the coach they played for. You get credit for that. So good for those guys, hamming it up for the Cam, Mo and Muss. All right, guys, thanks for being here. If something breaks, we'll jump back on. I don't foresee it. Probably be back on tomorrow. I kind of stumbled and stammered my way through the first part of this. My apologies for that. I'm juggling a lot today. It's a bad excuse, but I got about 3 errands I got to hit before getting back on the road and out of town. But until tomorrow, thanks for being here. You've all been great. Be great in all your endeavors as you move forward. Once again, happy birthday, my sweet Lexi, sweet 16. See everybody tomorrow. Be good.